told I'm live, but I'm still tweeting it. Now I'm tweeting we're live. We're live! And hopefully that tweet actually worked. Anyway, welcome to Healthcare Triage Live. While people join us, some of our usual housekeeping, and it's gone so far back I can't do it. So anyway, if I remember correctly, there are all these links on the screen right now that you can see. Some of them are for like merchandise, like the Healthcare Triage mug. Some are for the Facebook page, which you should go to and like so that you can see all our videos. One is probably for patreon.com/healthcaretriage where you could support the show, which we really appreciate. We're very happy about our patrons, especially as we move towards the end of the year here. We love them all the time, but it's special. And we have a Reddit, which I haven't been to in like a couple weeks. I need to get back over there. So you should check that out too. Anyway, let's get started. Andrew Hart says, are sugar substitutes... Actually, you know what? I'm going to defer this one because I want to actually look that up. So let's forget that. Move on to the next question. Michelle Winfield 1. Do you think there should be a lung cancer screening program just like in breast cancer? That's a great question. So I think I've written about this before, but to have a screening program, you sort of need to have a couple of things be true to say that you should do screening. One, disease has got to be, prevalent. And 2, you need a test that will help you pick it up early. 3, you need an engaged population so that if you give them that information, that they would actually use it. And 4, you need to know that doing something early will actually make a difference. If you can't do all 4 of those things, then it's really not worth having a screening program. Lung cancer is, sort of not, unfortunately, it's not terribly prevalent in the wider population. So it's not like you should do universal screening. It's not like everybody has the same risk of getting lung cancer. And you have to know that if you're going to do something about it, that the population is going to be engaged. We have lots of ways of warning people that smoking is bad. And yet they continue to smoke, no matter how much we tell them. So some people would question whether having that information actually would make a difference. Like, what would you do even if you did a screening and you said, if you do a screening, you find like, hey, you've got lung cancer, that's bad. Having said that, there actually are recommended screens for people who are at high risk to get lung CTs. And they've been shown to be sort of cost effective. They cost a lot of money, but you could make an argument that maybe this money is worth it because lung cancer is so bad and people do it. But we don't do it universally. Like, we don't say all people should get screened for lung cancer. We say people at high risk should get screened for lung cancer, and they get a CT, which is a big deal, and it's expensive. And that's why we do it. But I know I've written about this. The cost, depending upon what you read, could be like $1 million or more than $2 million per quali. If that makes no sense to you, you should go watch our episodes on both utility assessment and cost-effective analysis. But those screening programs do exist. And while I'm taking questions from Michelle in Winfield 1, she also asked, are protein milkshakes good for you if you're a sporty person? I'm assuming you mean sporty like athletic and not well-dressed. I recently read a paper where researchers said that people have too much protein compared to the extra we need after exercising. So there's a big kick that, if people drink tons and tons of protein and think it's going to help them build bulk. Those are hardcore weightlifters. And even then, it's sort of questionable how much of a difference it's making. If you're talking about sort of, replacing what you've lost after you exercised, or sort of the sports drinks and stuff, there's lots of good research showing that low-fat chocolate milk is as good as anything you're going to pay a ton of money for on the market. But again, when you talk about the benefits, these are small, and not huge. Like most people, you work out, you eat a balanced diet, you're going to be just fine. If you're really looking to build muscle mass, then I don't know. Maybe it'll help you, but it's one of many things. And if you're getting enough protein anyway, you're just getting extra protein. It's not like when you eat protein, it's guaranteed to go straight into bulk and muscle. That doesn't work. And so are protein milkshakes good for you? Good, I'd qualify. And you're a sporty person? Depends what your goals are. And how much of a difference is it going to make? Really small. And is consuming tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of protein bad for you? Yeah, it's not so good on your kidneys. So, but you'd have to eat a lot of the milkshake. So for most people, you're just probably not making that much of a difference at all. Tim Cronin asks, if the Affordable Care Act's health exchanges allowed Medicare as an option, how would it affect healthcare in the United States where costs are around $10,000 per person regardless of insurance? So Now you're getting back into a few things. One, it's the public option. It's the idea that, we could have the government run a healthcare plan, and it would, be cheaper. The second thing you might be talking about is sort of like trying to eke towards Medicare for all, where we have a single-payer healthcare system in the United States for everybody above the age of 65 and over, but, 64 and younger, that'd be tyranny in the end of days. So some people say maybe we could drop that to 60. Maybe we could let people buy into it if they like. I think that probably that would, allowing Medicare as an option might lower some costs, because in a lot of places in the country, we've shown, even when we look at Medicare versus Medicare Advantage, Medicare often runs cheaper than Medicare Advantage, which sometimes costs more but provides better, some other things that people want. But in some places in the country, Medicare Advantage actually runs a little bit cheaper. So it's questionable. But I think a lot of people would agree that it might be cheaper. How much cheaper? I'm not totally sure. Certainly having some sort of Medicare for all would improve access. I mean, if we just made a single-payer healthcare system, then almost by definition, everybody tomorrow would be insured. How much would we save in administrative costs? Probably some. You'll drop some of the profit, you drop some of the costs of administering many different health insurance plans. But we've also shown that Medicare in the United States still continues to be quite expensive, healthcare, and that the people's willingness to sort of limit spending is small, even if they're getting their insurance from the government. So I'm not necessarily convinced that it would necessarily drive costs down as far as many people assert. I do believe it would improve access, having a single payer. But your question specifically is, what if we allowed people to buy Medicare as an option? Most of the models that the Congressional Budget Office ran on a public option before the Affordable Care Act was in place thought that it would drop healthcare spending a little bit because it might drive private insurers to lower their rates a little bit to try to be competitive. I'm not sure it would change access much at all. I don't think more people would go to the exchanges if there was a public option. I'm not sure how much would improve quality, because that is dependent on many factors, and just having a public option in Medicare would not necessarily improve quality over a private plan. And I'm not sure how much it would actually drive down spending, since it's debatable at this point how good the insurance companies have been about guessing how much health insurance should cost to begin with. So it's possible that it would affect U.S. spending and U.S. healthcare costs by driving it down a little bit, but I'm not sure what it would do for quality, and so we're just not sure. Laura Croker asks, what are your thoughts on research linking prenatal acetaminophen use to childhood ADHD or asthma? So a lot of that, what we see is statistically significant but clinically significant small associations. These are not randomized controlled trials. These are not, for the most part, I think even prospective trials that can prove causation, even try to get a causation. They are somewhat associative. There's a ton of other things, of course, that come into play as well. So much of the prenatal environment is not totally understood. And there's so many things that women consume and do during pregnancy. And then you have these small but statistically significant, results later. It's the kind of thing where I'd be like, well, we know that, we've seen the associations, they should continue to do research. But I'm personally not seeing enough that I would recommend we would change our behavior, let's say my wife and I, because I shouldn't talk to you. You should get medical advice from your doctor. My wife and I don't think she would have changed her behavior taking acetaminophen, during pregnancy, based upon the data that was there. Or I should be more accurate. She'd probably freak out. And she probably would go crazy, and then I'd have to talk her down and say, it's probably not that big a deal, and you shouldn't worry so much. And if Amy's watching this, I apologize, but it's true. So, anytime she saw anything on TV that was going to be linked to a bad outcome during pregnancy while she was pregnant, and I blame Oprah for many of those things, I would have to go to the research. In fact, there's a huge section of one of the first books that pretty much could have been entitled Things I Told Amy While She Was Pregnant. Anyway, Captain Manacles says, when you talk about problems with supplements, do you mean herbal supplements or vitamin supplements or all vitamin supplements? When I take a vitamin C, is there a risk I'm not getting what I think I'm getting? The truth of the matter is, yes, that risk is there. You may not be getting what you think you're getting. Now, some companies, I guess, are probably more reputable than others. And some vitamins have been studied, and so therefore I assume that people have checked to see if what you're getting is what you're getting. But when I say vitamins and supplements, that's vitamins and supplements. They're not regulated for the most part. And when you go to a store and you buy a vitamin off the shelf, you hope you are, but you just don't know. And that's been the real problem with a lot of the supplements. So herbal supplements, it's true for, and a little bit with vitamins too. Especially because, a lot of these things, vitamins and minerals and all that, it's not like it's special. Vitamin C, when you buy it at GNC, is not medicine. It's not a prescription, and it's not regulated in the same way that pharmaceuticals are. And so I don't know that the vitamins you necessarily buy. Now it could be that some vitamin companies are doing a better job with regulation or regulating what they do, and you can trust them more. I don't have, off the top of my head, evidence, but I know I've linked in the past to ways you can be more assured that what you're getting is what you think you're getting, what you think you're getting, but vitamins are just not regulated in that way, like supplements. They're just not. Andrea Gatlin asks, is there any research regarding mothers eating their placenta after giving birth? Any potential harms in doing this? When you get questions like this, and I was not rolling my eyes there, I was actually just trying to think hard. When you get questions like this, part of what I'm trying to get at is when you say research regarding mothers eating the placenta, it's like, what outcomes are you looking for? I doubt you're trying to cure disease. So you're probably looking for short-term, some kind of health benefits. And the truth of the matter is those things are almost very hard to measure. And people don't do studies on that stuff for the most part, because why? So if you're doing it because there's a belief that you're sort of replenishing your body's needs naturally after birth, I don't think that's been studied. If you're doing it because you think it's like improving your immune system, I don't think that's been studied. In fact, I don't think there's been a ton of research on this in general. It's not terribly popular. And even if I could do that research, it's incredibly unlikely I'm going to get like a randomized controlled trial and do a thing. Because if you're committed enough that you want to eat the placenta, then you're not going to want to do a trial that doesn't eat the placenta. And if you're not into eating the placenta, you're not going to want to sign up for a study that's going to make you eat a placenta. So I can almost guarantee there's no RCT here, which means we're really not going to say anything about causation. Harms? I'm sure somebody could probably come up with a harm. I would also, part of it is going to obviously be related to, are you healthy? Is there anything like diseased or infected or anything else with respect to the placenta? But I'm going to bet for the most part, again, not terribly well studied, but people argue that they're animals that do this. People argue that it's natural and it's part of nature. And of course, there's lots of things that animals do that we don't. For instance, dogs wipe their butts by licking them. We don't do that. That doesn't, that's natural. Having said that, that should not be. Now, of course, people that are into eating the placenta are not going to get angry because I'm not equating that to licking dog butt. There are a lot of people, in fact, I know people, I think, especially in like Seattle when I was in residency, who did this, who were into eating the placenta. You have to sometimes fight with the hospital to get it. I imagine there's lots of people who are very much into this. I just don't think it's terribly well studied. And for that reason, I'm not terrible. I don't think there's tons of proven benefits. I'm sure there's hypothesized benefits. I'm not sure there's proven harms. I'm sure there's hypothesized harms. You should definitely talk to your doctor and anyone else if you are considering doing this yourself. John Dome, what is a case control study? What is a cohort study? Oh, you're teeing me up here. All right, this is a good one. So, case control study. If you have a rare disease and you want to look at an outcome, and you really need to figure it out, let's say it's like, let's do brain cancers and cell phones, because that's often what happens here. And you say, I want to know if cell phone use is related to brain cancer. Well, you might do a case control study where when you get cases, which are people with brain cancer, and then you get controls, who are people without brain cancer, and then you match them up, you pair them. So you try to make everything else equal about them. Same sex, same race, same age, whatever you can think of. Same socioeconomic status, same ethnicity, whatever you can possibly match them up on. You want the only difference to be, do they have brain cancer, do they not? And then you can ask them questions like, hey, do you use a cell phone? Do you eat lots of vitamin C? Do you run every day? And you can see if the people that get brain cancer have a different rate of response than the people who don't have brain cancer. So let's say you find that 80% of the people with brain cancer use a cell phone, but 10% of the people without brain cancer use a cell phone. That would make you say, my God, maybe there's a link between cell phones and cancer. There's problems with case control studies, though. They are really subject to what we call recall bias, where if in the background world we have a fear that cell phones cause brain cancer, people that get brain cancer are all of a sudden going to be like, oh my God, did I use a cell phone? Oh my God, I used a cell phone. And people that don't have brain cancer might be like, did I use a cell phone? I don't know. I didn't use a cell phone. So the recall bias is that people with the bad outcome, more often than not, remember the bizarre thing you're trying to study. And so you often will get associations that don't pan out in the real world. But that is a case control study. It's usually you want to do it for rare outcomes to get cases, match them up with controls, and see. Now, usually this is for hypothesis generation. Like maybe there's a link. To get a better sense, you do a cohort study. There's two types of cohort studies, prospective and retrospective. But they both involve taking a group of people, tons of people, and then looking at them over time and seeing, do people who develop or get certain outcomes are more likely to have or do other things. So prospective cohorts, by the way, again, are better than retrospective cohorts because they're less subject, once again, to recall bias. You don't want to ask people stuff from the past. You want to measure it and look forward. So if I got 10,000 people together and I check to see every year you're using a cell phone, and then I monitor them over time to see if which get brain cancer, and it turns out that of the people that get brain cancer, 70% were using a cell phone here, and of the people that didn't get a brain cancer, 50% were using a cell phone here. Well, now that's a little bit better evidence. Now, I've got a prospective cohort study, which is showing me that something is associated with something else. What I just described, though, rarely happens. The problem is that it's what we find is that, of the many, whatever it is, it's 72.1% chance used a cell phone of the people that get brain cancer, and 71.6% of the people that didn't use a cell phone get cancer. And oh my God, it's statistically significant. And you're like, well, but is that so tiny? Is that really? If you get a cohort of 50,000 people, very small differences will make a huge issue. Plus, it's still biased to things you can't control. Maybe the people who use cell phones are also more likely to eat certain foods, and that gives them brain cancer, or live in certain areas, and that gives them brain cancer, or do other. You just don't know. The way you go from association to causality is you got to randomize. That's why you go to randomized controlled trials. But for picking up associations, case control studies are sort of down here on evidence. Cohort studies, retrospective cohort studies are here. Prospective cohort studies are here, and of course, randomized controlled trials and some of the better stuff you can do is over here. So in sort of the strength of research arc, that's where you go. And I hope that was a decent explanation of case control and cohort studies. Isabel Sherwood asks, are there any viable methods of treating depression in individuals suffering from anorexia nervosa? I know that most drugs treating depression are less effective in subjects with low body fat percents. Well, first, Isabel, you got to treat the anorexia nervosa. That's not good. And so I would not, as a physician, move forward with the idea of accepting that, oh, well, you've got anorexia nervosa, let's just try to use drugs that would be better for people with low fat. We got to treat you holistically here. We need to treat the anorexia nervosa. We need to treat all other mental and physical illnesses and also treat your depression. Of course, depression can also be treated with therapy and with other things, and not all drugs are going to have the same kind of issues, I'm sure, with low or high body fat percents. But of course, again, those really concerned low body fat percents are not good for you, and we need to treat those. And I say you, not knowing if you are the patient, I mean in general. We need to treat that as well, and so that needs treatment. So yes, there are viable methods of treating depression in individuals suffering from anorexia nervosa. They're holistic, they're many, and they also involve treating the underlying eating disorder as well. Next, Amanda Cha, what are your thoughts on taking melatonin to help with jet lag? Try it? I don't know if there are any randomized controlled trials for that. Of course, people will take melatonin to help them sleep. You could also take a drug to help you sleep. You could also take lots of stuff to help you sleep. Talk to your doctor. I don't know if there's great research saying like these are great, better or worse methods of treating jet lag. I'll have to look into that. That's a great question. But melatonin is marketed as a sleep aid. I think it works for some people. That's fine. There are those sleep aids as well. Feel free. Talk to your doctor. Next question, Dr. Some Guy. What does research say about meditation and how it affects the structure of your brain? 2 questions there. First is, what does research say about meditation? There's a lot of research that actually shows that meditation can have a number of benefits, mostly on, feelings about well-being and, more mental health issues and, of course, physical health issues as they pertain to medical health issues. And so I'm a big proponent of saying, I think that using meditation is a completely viable option for people with anxiety or for people with, other issues, and it definitely works. But changing the structure of your brain, I don't think there's a ton of really great research on that. And again, it's what do you expect it to do? Like Professor X, Reed Richards stretch it? I'm not sure what you're looking for in terms of structure of the brain. The brain is incredibly complex. We understand very little of how it's all put together. And I would say that there's no solid evidence out there about meditation. And if you could do that, then with thought, we could change the structure of our brain all the time with other practices. And I don't think there's any good evidence for that at all. But that shouldn't limit my enthusiasm for saying that meditation probably has uses. Just don't get too much in the weeds and need it to change the physical structure of your brain. It can have lots of effects without doing that. Sean Johnson asks, are there any practical differences between multivitamins? Does form matter? Methylcobalamin versus cyanocobalamin. Also, how do supplement companies come up with the formulas or dosages? Most people are not vitamin deficient, and taking the multivitamin is bad. We've actually covered multivitamins in general, and I think some healthcare triage news is. The news is, the results of studies are conflicting. There's a minimal benefit if it exists. Some people think it does. And I've seen studies that show it can tiny reduce your risk of cancer, tiny reduce your risk of this or that. There are other studies that say the opposite. I'm on record as saying these things have almost no harm and you can buy them by the barrel at Costco for very little money, so feel free. But I don't know of any research that shows that the forms matter because there's not a ton of research that shows that they matter at all. And so therefore, where do they come up with the formulas or dosages? They're mostly trying to meet what, people have said is whatever the RDA, the recommended daily amount. They're trying to hit 100% or so of that so that you're getting what you need. That's where they come up with the dosages. I'm not sure about the form mattering. I'm going to say probably not too much. Otherwise, people would probably stick to the better one. But I don't have a ton of rock solid evidence in my pocket to say that that's necessarily the case. So there you go. And of course, buy from a reputable source because as with always with vitamins. N Kicker. The Senate is holding a committee meeting today on how pharma companies can buy old drugs and jack up the price. Do you think anything helpful will occur today? No. I will bet all the money in my pocket that nothing will happen today that will change regulations in the United States. The likelihood of the Senate and the House coming together and passing anything today is almost zero. The likelihood that it'll happen with new regulations on drug prices? No. Nothing is going to happen today. That doesn't mean stuff shouldn't happen. Of course, the problem is that I don't even think economists agree on what should happen here. I've read a number of well thought out proposals on how we could alter the incentives and sort of rewards in the drug market to try to make pricing more reasonable. None of those come from politicians, nor are any associated with politicians as far as I know. This is a problem. We've covered it, and the price of what was it? It was just recently that I can't remember the drug name, but that company that bought the old drug and jacked up the price. I know we covered that on Healthcare News. Shkreli, I can't remember. That's the name of the CEO that did it. It's a real problem, and we need to look into it. The likelihood of Congress tackling this today is zero. But I will, of course, go back and read the news and the hearings and see what anyone had to say. But I imagine it'll be more grandstanding and posturing than anything else. Now you got cynical, Aaron. Now I'm down. Thanks a lot, N. Cricker. Anyway, anti-static candy. If all daily nutritional needs are met through protein, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, etc., but caloric needs aren't met due to athletic training or a very active job, are sugar calories okay? I just can't bring myself to say that sugar calories are the way you're going to go. The truth of the matter is, if you're getting your daily nutritional needs with proteins, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, how are you not getting your caloric needs? It's not like sugar is its own food group that like you should be getting. It's like, most people through eating all of those other things and getting what they need are getting enough calories. Now, if you're burning off a ton of stuff by doing athletic training or a very active job, just increase the amounts of all those foods that you're eating. I mean, if you're losing too much weight because you're not consuming enough, eat more food. I just can't say that consuming the extra calories is going to be a good thing. That much extra, sucrose possibly could have other effects that I wouldn't recommend. So no, again, you're rare. We don't have research on you if this is your case, because the number of people I see in life and in medicine who are eating a healthy diet and just burning and losing weight so fast because they're just so active that they can't seem to keep it up. That's rare. It's small. And I would say eat more food. This is when people often, I think doctors would recommend like Boost or those shakes or whatever. It's sort of like where you get the holistic, nutritional needs. It's what we give people who just sort of can't eat the calories that they want. I don't know anyone who recommends, go have extra lollipops. So I probably wouldn't say that you should do that. I'm just looking at the time. All right, we'll go speed run here to finish up. Jane Simon, can people taking psychotropic drugs ever stop taking their medication safely, or is it just a recipe for relapsing to a mood episode? Ever? I'm sure they can, but usually it has to be done in a very controlled manner, weaning off it carefully under the supervision of a doctor. So you should not just do it cold turkey. No. You should always talk to your physician about how and over what length of time and under what manner to do it. So I wouldn't say they can't ever, but you should not be managing that by yourself. You should be talking to a doctor. Nicholas Jones, what do you think about the rise of personal health applications on phones, as well as the growing trend of health watches like Fitbit or Apple Watch? Useful for individual action? Epidemiology. I was actually in a debate a couple months ago, actually, with someone from one of the companies that you just mentioned, talking about this. I think that the evidence shows that a small segment of the population that is otherwise probably already actively engaged and of a high economic status is likely to use this kind of stuff and see a benefit. I don't think it's the kind of thing that it's going to make a huge difference in epidemiology. Like, it's not the cure for obesity. It is, the people that we need to use this stuff the most are the people least likely to engage. They also usually show short-term effects, not long-term effects. That's what's needed for real behavior change. And so I think that if it works for you, that's awesome. That's why this stuff should be bought by private individuals and used by private individuals. And I would never try to talk anyone out of it if they find that it helps them. Do I think that this stuff is like medicine and should be covered by insurance, and it's the way that we should be telling everybody that they're going to lose weight? No. Especially since, remember our episode on exercise, it's like, 30 minutes of moderate activity a day is what you need to be healthy. These things are often about, going way beyond that, tons. Even when Apple launched it, and I love Apple, as you know. When Apple launched the iWatch, it was Christy Turlington running a marathon. That was that was what they talked about. This is going to be great because it's going to get me to run 20 freaking miles and I'm going to look like a supermodel. That's marketing. That's not health. What you need to be healthy is, one, not be a supermodel. Two, you don't need to run a marathon. You need the moderate activity for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That is not necessary. You don't need this to do that. I like this for the sitting versus standing. I like this because it reminds me sometimes not to sit for long periods of time, as we did on our episode on sitting. I like this because it gives me alerts for my email and for my texting. And I find that this to be much less intrusive than this. When someone is calling me and my phone's not in the house, I like to look at it and say, nope, as opposed to trying to have to go to my phone to look at it. That's what the Apple Watch does for me. I don't believe it's making me thinner or healthier. Maybe someone will come up with an app that really does that. I'm not yet convinced that it's going to. We did an episode on that too. In fact, it was a while ago, but I think we did an episode on why I don't think all of this stuff is going to change or move the needle in terms of health. And you should go watch it. And on that note, thank you for turning into Healthcare Triage. This is our next week. Next week's the last live show of the year. Because the week after that, I'm going to be in Disney World. And that's not said sarcastically. I love Disney World. I really, really, really do. And I'm really looking forward to it. And so I will not be here. I don't know if anyone else will be here, but we're not going to do live. I'm not sure even about the week after that because we're getting close to everything else. But regardless, tune in next week and see us. Check out all these links that you're probably seeing. Patreon.com/healthcaretriage, Facebook/healthcaretriage, or whatever it is. Buy our merch. Do everything else. Project for Awesome starts Friday. You should definitely tune in for that. I'm told we might have some Healthcare Triage perks. You should get those and donate money to really good causes. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you next week.